Hey, Sam.
Hey Bev, how's it going?
Happy Tuesday.
I know. This is weird. It's Tuesday and it's just a little after noon, which, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, so we can drink now, right?
Yes. Well, obviously, because I just now opened a drink. But
Yeah.
besides that, even when we were planning on starting earlier, I was like, yeah, I'm still gonna have a beer just because, I don't know, it feels right.
Yeah.
It feels like the thing to do.
Yes. And it's just like you're on your lunch hour. It's fine. You can have lunch hour beer. It's cool.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure that everybody that works in an office has a lunch hour beer every now and then. Like, unless you like fly the
Oh,
plane
yeah.
or drive the Uber, I don't know, work the farm equipment, you
Right.
don't have a
Right.
beer during lunch for that.
You
But
just
yeah,
you use common sense. Yes.
I sit at a computer all day, and the only thing I have to do this afternoon besides like email and a couple of things for work is I just gotta clean out a chick brooder. So I think I can do that after
I,
having a
I I
beer.
would think so. And I'm on vacation all this week and next Monday, like a staycation. So that is also why I'm available to drink and record at a noon on a Tuesday.
Which is so exciting. I love taking staycations.
Yes.
We have like our whole year of staycations planned out. Like 3 and 4 day weekends is pretty much what we did with all of our vacation time this year. Because there's a lot of work to
Oh
do here.
yeah. Same here. I think the rain's gonna stop as soon as we're done recording this, which is great because I want to go buy some plants and plant all the things. And then I also have a staycation in July for when my order of chicks comes through. So,
Yay!
yay, staycations.
What kind of plants are you gonna buy?
Um, Probably, well, a lot of herbs. I want to get a lot of mint and lavender to plant on the back deck. It does a good job of repelling certain kinds of bugs like mosquitoes and flies and stuff. And I want to get some more mint for around the perimeter of the coop. And then I will get some flowers and probably some like tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that. Just keep it simple.
Oh, that sounds so fun. And you can make mojitos with mint.
Yes, I could. Ooh, I could probably like make all kinds of weird stuff.
I have like an entire side of mint, but my husband was spraying that. They're not ladybugs, but they're those like yucky bugs that kind of look like ladybugs. They get in our house all winter, so my husband has to spray that side of the house with spray to keep them from climbing in through
Mm-hmm.
our bathroom window. So we're not eating any of the mint from under there because it's been like dripped all over with this
Ew.
ladybug killer stuff. So the mint just like hangs out there and creates ground cover, I guess.
Is it like those Asian beetles? They're like kind of
Yeah,
orangish. Yeah, my parents get those in their house too.
yeah, they're so yucky and they'll ruin all your clothes too. Like if they get in your
Ooh.
bathroom, they crawl all over your clothes and they like regurgitate stuff all over
Ew.
them. So they leave like these nasty like brown stains on everything. Yeah, I thought that they were ladybugs and I was like, "Oh, the ladybugs are overwintering in our house." My husband's like, "Oh God, those are not ladybugs."
They're like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
It's like they're like stink bugs. So now
Mm.
I squish them when I see them.
Yeah, my mom would suck them up with the vacuum.
I do a lot of that too.
Yeah. We don't have any of that going on here, but we have the Boxelder bugs, which are like
Mm,
kind of the rectangle ones with the red stripe down the back. And
yep.
they don't really do anything nasty, I don't think, but they're just kind of obnoxious. Like they'll cover the side of the house. And I'll like go over there and like knock them down. And sometimes the chickens will investigate and try to help, but most of the time they just kind of look at me like, I'd prefer some
Like
other
we
kind
got
of
all this
treat.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me some scratch or something, please and thanks.
Right. I figured out that my chickens are getting a little too spoiled when I dumped an entire thing of spinach in there and they all just looked at it like,
Like, really? Leafy greens? Are you kidding me?
I'm like, "Ah, you guys like need more iron."
It's good for you. Eat it.
They're like, no thanks. We only like protein treats and
Yes.
corn.
Yeah, scrambled eggs, oatmeal, black soldier flies.
Right. Picky ass chickens.
So, speaking of only wanting to eat and drink things we like, what are you drinking today?
Oh yeah. So I'm drinking. Oh, I stuck it in a koozie and now I can't get it out because it's all sweaty. Oh, there we go. All right. So I'm drinking a Soul Drifter by Mad Tree Brewing Company, which is a brewery in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I love this beer because it has this beautiful pink can and it has a drawing of like this cool like ship that has like a funky like hippie tree coming out of it. I don't know.
It's pretty. Like you sent me a picture.
Yeah.
I'll have to post it on our Instagram for all to see
Oh
because it's
yeah.
very
Yeah.
cute. I liked it.
And it's a really delicious beer too. It's another one of those like really good summer beers. What's
Mm.
the ABV on this one? I feel like I haven't looked. A 4.3. See, it's perfect.
Oh
It's a great
yeah.
lunchtime beer.
That's not bad at all.
And a great chore beer.
Yes.
Yeah. It has a little saying on the can. It says, whether you drift along in life, drift down the river, or just want to drift through a drinking session, Soul Drifter will let you go where you want to deliver subtle citrus hop flavors to complement a crisp, refreshing tart finish.
Ooh. It sounds delightful.
Yeah, it is delightful. I love delightful beer. So what are you drinking?
So I was really bummed that I didn't like have any Baileys because I wanted to make like an iced coffee with Baileys because I felt like, ooh, that's an appropriate early day drink,
Oh
but no
yeah.
Baileys. And then I was like, ooh, I could do coffee wine, but I was like, yeah, meh. And then so I decided to dig through our alcohol cabinet and I found some Pinnacle salted caramel vodka. And I was like, let's give this a whirl. So I sniffed it and it smelled like a hangover. But I was like, I'll try it anyways. So I put it in to like a highball glass with some ice and then put in like most of a can of plain seltzer water. And it's actually quite refreshing and doesn't taste like vodka or hangover.
Oh,
So
that's good.
it feels pretty like a chill beverage to be drinking early in the day where I don't feel like I'll feel like ass in a couple hours. So
Right. Yeah, because that is the hard part about day drinking. Like you either have to like shake it off quickly or you just have to like keep going at the same pace.
exactly.
Otherwise, you end up feeling like kind of but I don't know. I guess I didn't eat
Yeah.
lunch before this, but I did that on purpose so that I could eat right after we were all done and then I'd like, be back at it.
That's probably a good plan. I had a hot pocket like an hour and a half ago, so that's how my day's going.
Oh, a hot
Yeah,
pocket sounds pretty good.
super nutritious. And it was
Yeah.
ham and cheese, and Hamlet was sitting there watching me eat it, and I was like, "You can't have any of this. I'm not feeding you your own kind."
Yeah, pigs aren't like chickens. It seems like it'd be a little weird to feed a pig pork. I could totally
Yeah,
see that.
yeah, especially since he lives in the house and has such a personality. So,
Right.
yeah.
I made some toast this morning with some eggs, but I had to make my toast on the griddle because I don't have a toaster oven anymore, and my husband won't let me replace it. So,
Oh.
yeah. That was what I burned down in the kitchen last week.
Oh, yeah. So how did that happen?
So I made tostadas for dinner the night before. And when I make tostadas, I use like these corn tortillas and I just cover them with a little bit of olive oil and salt and pepper. And then I roast them in the oven. Well, we don't normally have leftovers of the tortillas, but we did this night for some reason. And I can't remember why. Probably one of the kids was like gone doing something. So they didn't eat theirs. So we're like, oh, we're going to eat this for lunch. And I wanted them to be crispy. So I put them on the rack in the toaster oven
Hmm.
and turned it on. And I guess like while it was warming up, like the olive oil started leaching out of the
Uh-oh.
tostadas and then it pooled on the bottom of the toaster oven and then caught fire. And it turns out we don't have a smoke alarm in our kitchen.
Oh.
So I didn't know it had caught on fire. Like I was frustrated. I can't even remember why I was frustrated. Most of my stories start with me being frustrated. I was frustrated about something, so I like stormed back to my desk while I was trying to warm up lunch. And so I was sitting at my desk while the toaster oven was on fire, and I got finished with what I was doing, and I was like, "Oh, like I feel like these should be getting kind of close." And I got up and like walked towards the kitchen, and I could see that it was like totally filled with black smoke. I was like, "Oh my God, I just lit the kitchen on fire." Luckily, Jared works from home too, and he walked in and he just looked at me and then went to get the fire extinguisher and he put out the fire extinguisher. I was pulling out the pot holders because what I was going to do was I was going to pick the thing up and just like throw it outside in the grass.
Oh boy.
But he sprayed it down with the fire extinguisher, and it worked really well. Sadly, all of my seedlings that were next to that part of the kitchen didn't make it
No.
because they got all sprayed down by the by the fire extinguisher, and our house smelled like fire for a few days. But other than that, it cleaned up really nicely and didn't do damage to anything. So I'll call
Yeah,
that a win.
that's quite the story there.
Yeah, I mean, there were like flames coming out of this thing. Like so much so that I couldn't open the door because that was my idea. I was going to open the door because I thought that like, the rush of cold air would kind of, snuff it out.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. That was how big the flames were.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad that you guys caught it before it got like really bad.
Yeah, I'm glad I like didn't go out into the barn to like go do
Oh
anything.
yeah.
But the funniest part was, so like whenever things like this happen, like my husband and I don't speak about them while they're happening. We both just like know exactly like what job it is that we have. So he grabs the fire extinguisher and I start walking around opening windows so that I can get all the smoke out because the smoke had cleared down like the ceilings in the kitchen, I think, are probably like 12 feet. They're not crazy high. Like it's not like a vaulted ceiling or anything, but they're still pretty high. And the smoke had filled up to where like it was below, like it was to my shoulders. So we were like walking like through like a ton of smoke. So I started, trying to air the place out and then he walks over and starts helping me pull things open. And then the toaster oven goes ding, like our lunch is ready. We both just looked at each other. We're like,
Oh goodness.
I was like, well, I guess we're eating lunch without tostadas. And we learned a valuable lesson about cooking greasy food in a toaster oven on the rack without a pan under it.
Yes. Yes, I
So,
can see why he maybe is a little hesitant to go out and buy another one at the moment.
yeah. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't started a fire with it before that because the main thing that I used it for is reheating leftovers, and I always throw them straight on the rack because they're crispier that way. But like, think of
Mm.
like pizza and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like the grease like bubbling out and over. And it was half broken because it got broken in a box on the move, but we were still using it anyways. Like the thing was all cracked
Oh.
where like all the knobs and stuff were. And I was like, it still works, so I'm not gonna throw
Well,
it
maybe by
away.
Christmas
Well,
or something, he will find it acceptable to get you a new one.
maybe I hope so because I really like toast. But the toast tasted pretty good on the griddle this morning. I wasn't sure how that was gonna turn out, but I was quite pleased with it. I think that's like how diners do their toast.
Yeah,
So.
I've never actually owned a toaster oven. I've only ever had toaster, so I don't get the
Oh.
whole toaster versus toaster oven dealio.
Yeah, the only reason we own it is because our oven broke
Oh.
when we lived in our old house, and the like home warranty company couldn't replace our oven for like it was on back order or something like the kind we needed because we had a built-in oven, so it wasn't one that just like went on the floor.
Oh.
So they bought us a toaster oven to like get by in the meantime, so I could still, like cook a 12-inch frozen pizza or a couple of things. And you'd be surprised what you can do with the toaster oven. Like it's a pretty handy thing. My new kitchen has two ovens in it. So my husband's like, "You don't need two ovens and a toaster oven." Like that's like
Fair
overkill
enough.
on ovens.
But isn't a toaster oven faster than a regular oven?
Well, it has a smaller amount of space to warm up, so I would assume so. And it was a convection toaster oven, so it was like a super cooked things. I think that's what convection ovens do. I don't know.
Yeah.
My ovens aren't convection ovens, but supposedly like things in a convection oven, you have to like cook them at a lower temperature and for a little less time because otherwise they'll like burn everything because it like moves air around while it's cooking. I don't know.
Oh,
I'll have to Google what convection oven means.
probably sciency.
And that was Bev and Sam's
Yeah,
cooking show.
you are welcome. You never know where you're going to go when you listen to Drink and Farm.
Nobody's gonna invite us over to cook in their
Yeah.
kitchen, that's for
We're
sure.
like, how do ovens work?
And I'm actually a really like halfway decent cook. Like I cook a lot of things really well. But I am like a wing it cook, so I do burn things and light things on fire quite often. This won't be like our only fire story. I'm positive of that.
Oh boy.
Oh, so we have so many things to talk about. I don't even know where to start.
All the things. So I've been dying. Okay, I'm just going to make you talk about this now. I've been dying to know the unfertile egg story and how that all unfolded.
Yeah, so this ended up being super hilarious, but like the morning that it started, it wasn't super hilarious. We were trying to get out the door to like go do something, and I realized that that morning was lockdown for the eggs. So I was like, "Oh, hold on, like I gotta get like these eggs locked down." I know I had sent you the pictures of the candling, and I'll share
Yeah.
a photo of those in the Patreon so that you can like see what I was dealing with, like when I was looking at these eggs. But yeah, those eggs were obviously, like now it's obvious to me that those were clear eggs, but like it's so hard to see through the shell. It's when you've never
Mm-hmm.
like really looked at them, it's so hard to tell. So I went to go put this incubator on lockdown, and you have to like take trays out and take the churner out and all of that. So I pulled the lid off, and one of the eggs had broken. I had accidentally stuck the auto turner in with the eggs instead of in the slot. So when it went to do like the turnaround, it just smashed right through an egg. I was like,
Oh.
oh, like I totally ruined one of them. I felt so terrible. I flipped it over, I pulled the stuff out, and I looked, and I was like, that's just orange yolk all over the place. Like, that can't be right. Like, these have been incubating for, it was the morning of day 19 was when I
Mm.
was doing lockdown. I keep hearing 18 and 19, but you're like supposed to have it for 3 days. So I decided the morning of the 19th to do lockdown because I couldn't find a consensus. And when I cleaned it out, I'm like, yeah, this is all orange. It's just goopy. There was no change whatsoever. So I pulled out the candler. I went and bought one because I thought like maybe I wasn't doing something right with my flashlight. So those pictures that I showed you were with a real candler, not just like my fist on a flashlight. And all of the eggs looked exactly the same. There was no change. And when I had candled, I noticed that they all were identical. So since the broken one was just a bunch of yolk, I was like, I bet you anything that all of these are just a bunch of yolk. So I did. I pulled out a bowl and I just cracked every egg open like over and over and just had like the bowl of like soupy eggs, which I posted that on Instagram if anybody's curious and wants to go take a peek at it. It was just like it looked like I was getting ready to scramble
Yeah.
breakfast. And I'm like peering at them. I'm like, I can't tell if there was a bullseye because it's one of the ways you can tell if an egg is fertile, if it's got like the little bullseye that shows that it's been fertilized. But these were so old and been in the incubator for so many days that I couldn't tell if there had ever been one. So I snapped a picture of them and I just kind of sat on it for a few hours because I was talking to my husband. I'm like, what do I do? Like, should I message her? This was sort of, like a weird, like, parking lot exchange. I mean, like, part of the reason why it was so short and creepy was because it was pouring rain when we did it. So we didn't exactly, like, I wasn't gonna, like, invite her in my car to, like, chit chat with me
Right.
because we didn't know each other. So it was just, like, literally, like, a here's the 20, here's the carton of eggs, peace out. And that was it. I'm like, do I message her and ask her if there's any possibility that these weren't fertile? Or like, do I take this as a lesson? Like, you're an idiot. Don't meet strangers in the parking lot to buy eggs that you want to hatch. Like, she just went down and picked up like eggs from the
Oh
grocery
boy.
store and gave them to you for 20 bucks. And my husband's like, well, it doesn't hurt to like at least message her, and just let her know that you didn't have success and maybe she can give you some pointers or anything. So I thought about how to word it and I was just like, hey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but is there any chance, like at all, that the eggs I got weren't fertile? And I told her the story of how I found the broken one and then I cracked them all open and I sent her a picture and was like, I'm not experienced enough to know whether or not these are fertile by like looking at the yolks. And obviously, they're 19-day-old eggs that have
Right.
been sitting in a hot incubator. So a lot of it had evaporated out. So they weren't even like cracking a fresh egg. They were some of them were kind of hard to get out of the shell because there wasn't a whole lot of them left in there, except the yolk. And she messages me back and she's like, I'm so sorry. Those were totally not fertile. She's like, I had been hatching my Barnevelder. She had done like a bunch of hatches before she gave me my eggs because she was making sure that everything was going okay before I got mine. And she said she had been getting like 100% hatch rate. And then suddenly, like a couple weeks ago, she started
Huh.
getting clears when she candled them. She said she couldn't figure out what was going on. She went out and she's noticed that she has two guinea fowl and they're both males. And the guinea fowl had been chasing her roosters off of her hens
Oh
and
my
mating
God.
with the hens instead.
Oh,
Yeah.
little jerks.
So she's like, I just got these guineas out. They're gone now. They're not going back. And then I'll get together with you in a couple weeks to give you some fresh eggs after like I make sure that everybody's like calmed down. Because like I imagine that the hens were basically being
Oh my
terrorized.
God.
And the roos weren't doing what roosters are supposed to do. So they're probably all mad and frustrated. And then I went on her Facebook page and she has a picture of two guinea fowl in a crate that just says
Oh
free
my
to good
God.
home. And I almost just like laughed out loud on it, but I was like, nobody else knows the story, so they're not going to understand like why I think this is so hilarious. And she ended up being really nice about it too. Like it was a really important lesson to me in like not just assuming that everybody is like doing the wrong thing, like when things
Right.
don't end up going the way that they're supposed to. Just approach like all situations like with the assumption that a mistake has been made. And that was exactly how I did it. And and I told her I kind of thought that these might be clear when I candled them on day 7 and didn't see any veining. But then also, like, they were kind of dark. So I thought maybe I'm just not seeing the veins because I don't know what I'm looking for, or maybe I can't really see through these
Right.
shells. But
Right.
Barneveld eggs aren't really that dark. Like, they're not like a black copper Moran egg, like by any means, or, like an olive egg. Like, those are almost impossible to see through. But one of the other things that tricked me up was a bunch of the yolks had broken in there, probably just from the humidity and, not being fertilized. Their like protective coating kind of broke down and they just became like free floating yolks. So I thought I was seeing like the outline of little baby chicks,
Ooh,
like in
yeah.
like a C shape. And it was really just like free floating, like broken yolk in there. Some of them, the yolks were still intact, so you could see like the big blob just like floating on the top. And then some of them, the blob was sort of like bent around, like a little chick embryo that was being developed. So I hesitated to break any of them open because, nobody wants to break open
Right.
and
Exactly.
kill a
But I'm
thing that was in the
glad
middle of
that
developing if they
that
didn't
was
have to.
resolved and resolved peacefully. And that is so funny. Like well, first of all, I have no plans to get guineas. I've heard they're great at
Me
keeping
too.
away snakes and bugs and all that good stuff, but they are so loud.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Like unbelievably loud. Like, because I was like, oh, this would be so great, blah, blah, blah. And then I heard a couple at an auction and I was like, and no. So I didn't know that they would like terrorize the chickens. I didn't even think about them like mating with the hens either. Like, that's crazy.
Well, it's just like we talked about ducks. We'll do that also. So you have to be careful keeping
Right.
drakes with hens. Like, I mean, I guess they are all different types of fowl. I know they're like different species. All different kinds of breeds of dogs will mate together. Like, they are still like of the avian,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, I guess it makes
So I can kind of
sense, but I
see.
just never thought of it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's too good.
And the kids were disappointed at first, and Orion was a little sad. He was like, "Oh, so they all died?" And I was like, "No, like they weren't dead. They just weren't."
Yeah.
That's all that it was. Like it was like sticking eggs from the grocery store in there and hoping they would hatch. And Aurora got that right away and was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll just when we get new eggs, we'll try again."
Aw.
It was really
Well, at
cute.
least she got some like practice out of the deal, with
Yeah.
the fake eggs,
Yeah.
the impastos.
Yeah, imposter eggs. So we'll get some more egg laying chickens soon. I don't know when. It'll probably be a couple weeks before we start new eggs, which also means that they'll probably have a similar hatch date to our current egg layers, which would be kind of cool because it means that, like,
Oh,
the same time of year as everybody is like happy hatch day, so I can just have one chicken party instead of having to have a bunch.
there you go.
I don't know. I'm looking at the bright side here.
Oh yeah. No, and it'll be warmer outside, so that'll be great too. You're not gonna have to worry about them being too cold or anything weird.
I mean, I'm really hoping that it doesn't get any warmer though. Yeah, this is also now the podcast where we just bitch about the weather. It has been so freaking hot here. I haven't had to turn on the heat lamp for the meat chickens because I bought a second one because I got the meat chickens before I realized that the eggs were duds and I only have one. So I was like, well, I gotta buy a second one
Oh.
because if I don't, those eggs are gonna hatch. I'm not gonna have enough heat for everybody. And it turns out they haven't had to use it because it's so hot that everybody's panting when it's
Oh,
on. So
good.
I just turned
That's
it
good.
off. Yeah, and they're good. Although they're currently pecking around outside in their chicken tractor because it's so nice out. I don't have to worry about them being cold.
That's good. So how many do you have for the meat chickens?
So we got 13 meat chickens because I wanted to start off with like a smaller amount of
Mm-hmm.
chickens that we needed to butcher. And I was kind of curious to see how they like really fit in the stock tank that I bought, like as a brooder, and see how they really fit in the tractor together. Once they all weighed 8 to 10 pounds apiece. I have a feeling it's gonna be a little crowded in there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll see. Some people have said that you have to plan for losses because of the health of the breed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But quite honestly, I haven't noticed anything like that in the, how many days have we had them? We've had them for 5 days now.
Okay.
They act just like the egg chicks did, and they're just as active. They're just as clean. They're just as, peepy and fun. They're just a little bigger, and their feathers are coming in a lot sooner.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah, I haven't noticed a big difference. They do, since they convert feed to meat very rapidly, it also means that they convert feed to poop very rapidly. So it's like 10 times as much poop to clean up. But otherwise, yeah.
So do you move them in between the little tank and the chicken tractor like day and night?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not really getting cold enough at night to probably bother with it. I could probably leave them out, but thunderstorms have been in the forecast.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, none of them have actually come. But when a thunderstorm comes, it'll rapidly cool down here, like into the 60s probably, and that's too cold for, 2-week-old chickens that don't have feathers yet. So making sure to bring them in at night just in case the thunderstorm rolls in, but we
Right.
haven't had that. Yeah.
Right. And you don't want to be like hooking up a heat lamp in your chicken tractor and having
Oh
electricity
yeah.
and then it get rained on and yeah, just bad, bad
Yeah,
all
no, that
around.
that totally won't work. Yeah. I mean, and if it fell in there, like, yeah,
Oh,
it would totally do damage to
yeah.
one of the chickens.
Fried
Or,
chicken
I
a
mean, they
little
don't have
too
feathers
early.
yet, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we all know about the dangers of the heat lamps. I honestly, I still use them just because those little tiny heaters, that they recommend for chick brooders,
Yes.
they're not big enough for the size of chick. What do you call them? Chick flocks? They're not big enough for the size of chick flocks that I tend to have.
Yeah.
Like, I need to have two or three of them.
And they're
And
expensive.
they're so expensive. Yeah. So I just brewed in the garage on the concrete
Mm-hmm.
and it's clipped to the metal stock tank. So, I mean, if it fell in the brooder, it would be bad, but it's pretty secure. I just can't imagine that. And meat birds don't fly like egg
Right.
laying chicks
Right.
do. Like, I'm not going to go out there and see meat birds hanging out on the edge of the stock tank. There's not a
No.
chance in
No.
ever. They're so big. It's hard to describe like how big they really are. I'll have to take a picture of one in my hands because like you can already see the legs and like the breasts
Oh.
developing into like the shape that they're going to be in, and it's quite
Huh.
fascinating. Yeah, they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool chickens, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we've been enjoying them, even though they're meat chickens. Like we still pick them up and pet them. I haven't really, I've been trying to handle them as little as possible now since their pin feathers came in, because those things look super painful. Like
Right.
on the egg laying chicks, you can see them, but I feel like they're more prominent and thicker and like scarier looking on the poor meat birds. Something about them coming in faster or stronger, I don't know. But those poor birds are covered in pin feathers right now. So when I was moving them today, I was scooping my hand under their belly so that I could just get under their legs and just pick them up without like,
Right.
crunching them on all sides, with your
Right.
hands. Like, oh, poor things. I'm like, I promise you'll like it once we get outside, though. You'll stop yelling at me. But yeah, I'm not as what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not as concerned about Butcher Day as I was like before they arrived. Like now that they're here and I see their purpose and I'm taking care of them and whatnot, it just feels like it's part of like the natural order of how it's going to be I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
No, and I think when you go into it knowing that and you can see the way that they are progressing and how rapid it is, like really you're going to be putting them out of their misery at the end of the day because they can
Yeah.
get so big to the point where their legs break. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that's the purpose of them and it's going to fill your freezer. So, and it's for your family. And
it
it's not
will.
like you're treating them poorly in the process. You know that you're treating them humanely and that makes it well, I think that idea could even make it easier.
It does. And ever since we watched, the Rotten episode about chicken, I think that was sort of what like sparked me to go out and go get them Friday. We had to go to buy some pieces to hang the barn door on the goat shed anyways. So I was like, well, while we're going to a feed store, I might as well go pick up our meat birds. My husband's like, yeah, I guess you might as well. Like, rolling his eyes at me. Like, like there can't possibly be a better time to start meat birds. And then we started getting worried about like getting them. He's like, wait a second, are we going to be able to process these before we go do these things? Because, we're going to the Naperville Ale Fest. So I have to make sure that they're done
Hmm.
before we leave for that. Like, there's a little tiny trip that we want to do end of June also. So I need to make sure they're going to be done before that. Luckily, these ones were already a week and a half old. So I've got a week and a half on the clock
Oh, good.
already done.
Good.
And I don't know when their butcher date is going to be, but I've heard between 6 and 9 weeks. So we'll see. Even if it's 9 weeks, they'll be done before the Naperville Ale Fest. So I'm
Woohoo.
happy. And then when we get back, I'll get another set right away, assuming everything goes well. But I don't see any reason why it won't.
Yeah.
And if anything, I feel like I take better care of them than I did our egg laying chicks because they just require a little more care because they poop more. So like you really got to be like on top of it. Otherwise that thing gets like super crazy disgusting. So I've been very diligent, like making sure that they're not sitting in their own waste because that's how you breed
Right.
disease and sickness. And I was like, nope, I'm not going to let you guys get sick. You guys are all going to be healthy because we're going to eat you. And I want to make sure that it is like the best. You guys are the healthiest that you can possibly be because that's the way that I keep us, the healthiest that we can possibly be. I don't know.
Right. It makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Plus, I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing. When I had my first chicks, like I kind of felt like a crazy person. Like I was worried about everything. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't even pick them up right. I was afraid to pick them up because they yell at you when you pick
Oh,
them up. So I
yeah.
was like, ah, I'm hurting them. It turns out that they just make a lot of noise.
Yeah. They just get angsty about everything.
Chicks are angsty,
Very, very, very.
even before they get into their teenage
Oh,
phase.
yes.
So I saw that you got some ducky friends for Han Solo.
Yeah, so he was the only one that hatched out of the 13 eggs we started with, which was,
Oh, that's a bummer.
yeah, and I think like I did research after the fact, and it turns out that call ducklings just have a harder time hatching, so you're more likely to need to assist. So it was a big learning experience.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
So, like, one of the things I learned is if you can candle them and you see that there's an internal pip, it's not a bad idea to take like a little razor blade or an X-Acto knife. I used an X-Acto knife to like create a little air hole for them because they could have a hard time getting to the external pip and then they basically just suffocate and die. And that did happen with the one other viable one that we had. I saw the internal pip. I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave it. And I probably shouldn't have left it
Oh,
because he probably would have been fine if I would have done that. But again, learning experience and you just really don't know either. And because we're not doing it for breeding purposes, like some people will say, well, you don't want to help a hatch because then that means you're introducing weak birds into your flock. And if you're breeding, you don't want to do that. So, it's kind of the whole helping thing is a little controversial, but since this is our first duckling hatch, I've learned a ton, and it's way more difficult for them to hatch than it is for a chick to hatch. So we just had the one call duck, and I put a little stuffed animal in there, and he enjoyed that. And then a couple of
oh.
days later, my husband drove to Indiana to get 4 call ducklings from somebody that just hatched them out like 2 or 3 days before Solo was hatched. His name's Han Solo, by the way, since he was the only one that hatched Solo.
Yep.
Not sure if it's a boy or girl. I haven't like tried vent sexing. There is a YouTube video from Mentzer's Farms for duckling vent sexing, but I haven't watched it all the way through yet. But I might try to figure that out. We'll see. I don't know. Vent sexing can be a little tricky. Um,
I was gonna say, is it as tricky as it is with chickens? I mean, I've heard that, like, I forget what the mortality rate is with vent
yeah,
sexing, but with baby chicks, like they've said, like it's not worth it for the home person to learn how to
right.
do it. But
My impression based on some Googling was that duckling vent sexing is a little easier
oh, okay,
once you get the hang of it, but I'm like really nervous to even try. I think because ducklings
yeah,
are maybe the way the shape of the duckling is, it might be a little easier to handle them because chicks are more like a little fluff ball, but ducklings are more like oblong. So
yeah, I could see
I'm
that.
not sure. I haven't tried. They say after the first few days, it's not even worth trying to vent sex because you won't be able to tell.
Oh, okay.
So,
So does that mean that drakes have vents also? I guess I had never thought of that.
I
Well, I guess they
mean,
need to poop out
yeah,
of
they have
somewhere.
their where they have to go number one and number two at the same time, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Well, because, like obviously, male and female chickens both have a vents,
right,
not just for going to the bathroom, but that's also both of that's how they do it.
right.
They use the same organ. But drakes, as we talked about before, like they actually have a penis.
Right.
So,
So I'm wondering if that's why it's just a little easier and more obvious. Maybe
okay.
I will send you the video so you can link it in the show notes so people can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But we actually have two more that are trying to hatch today. Today is technically the Muscovy hatch date, but we
Oh,
had two hatch already because I think because I was so nervous after the call ducks, I helped a little more than maybe I should have with the first two Muscovies. We had like a one batch of Muscovy eggs that we cleaned off. We cleaned the eggs before we put them in there, and then we had a second batch that arrived like 2 days later, and we didn't clean those. They were still dirty. So we're like, we're just going to do an experiment and see how this works out. I want to say we had like 12 Muscovy eggs between both of them, and we had two that have hatched and then two that should be hatching today. The two that
okay.
hatched late last week, one of them that we kind of helped a little bit, and by help I mean external pip and then removing some of the shell. I don't mess with a membrane because you can very
Yeah.
easily hit a vein and they can bleed out. I did accidentally hit one of
Yeah.
those veins, and then I just used a little cornstarch to
Oh,
put on it, and it stopped the bleeding right away. So that was
okay.
good. Thank God. That would have been traumatizing
Yeah.
for everyone. But one of them hatched a little too early and still it hadn't fully absorbed that yolk yet. So what I had to do was take like a solo cup and I like cut kind of the top part off of it so it wasn't super tall. And then I put like paper towel in it and just set him upright in there. And it was like before bed that he hatched. So I did that. And then by the morning, it had completely absorbed
Okay.
and he pulled himself out of there. It
Oh,
was,
awesome.
I asked my husband, did you pull him out of there? And he's like, no. It's like, oh, I guess he knew he was done because he wanted to
Yeah.
get out and cuddle with his buddy.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, we already have two Muscovies. When my husband was picking up the four runner ducks in Indiana, I think they were actually meeting at a Rural King down there, and he walked in there and he said they have cayungas. And I'm like, "What?" They're the ones that are like all black and they kind of get
Oh,
like a green sheen to them, and they're just really cool ducks. And within the first, I think, year of laying, sometimes they lay like a darker color egg. Like sometimes I've even seen pictures of like a gray or almost black egg, but I think that goes away after time. So I was like, I need some of those. I've been dying to have some of those, but I didn't want to pay like the super expensive shipping from a hatchery for them.
yeah.
So he picked up two of those at Rural Kings, so they hung out with him. He actually forgot to text the people that he was leaving last Friday. So he was waiting in
Oh.
the parking lot for him. And then they're like, "Oh, we never got your text, so we never left." So he had to like drive another hour to Fort Wayne.
Oh, oh my goodness. He
Yeah.
was like right near my husband's like parents' place.
Oh, that's funny. I have an aunt actually that lives in Markle, which is super close to Fort Wayne
Okay.
too. So I was like, "Oh, you could have stopped by." So so he had to go all the way to Fort Wayne. So he got the four call ducks and then he had the two other ones as well. So he ended up coming home with six ducks. So that was fun. And one duck compared to
That
like
is fun.
three ducks, which the poop was manageable. Now that we have like eight ducks in there, it's just I'm changing it every single day because they're just little poop machines and the water is
Yeah.
everywhere, but they're adorable, so it's okay.
Was gonna tell you, I have a little trick for dealing with the poop. I don't know if this will work with the ducks, but I noticed immediately that these meat birds pooped more than the regular chicks did.
Hmm.
So every morning and every evening, I take just like a ton of the pine shavings and I sprinkle a new layer on
Oh,
top. And then I put my head in there and smell to make sure that, like, there's not like, like a bunch of ammonia fumes or anything. And so far, it's been working really well. Now, I mean, that means that their bedding is, like slowly getting taller and taller. Today is like day number 4 or 5 that we've had them. So while they're in the tractor today, I'm going to clean their brooder totally out so that we can start fresh again because I don't want to leave it for too long, so it'll get all soupy and nasty on the bottom, and that sounds gag-tastic. But that saves me from having to, like move them
right.
out and scrub their whole thing clean, and then otherwise I'd be doing
Oh,
it twice a day. There's no doubt in my mind because that's how big and gross their poops
oh my
are,
God.
and I
Well,
imagine the ducks are kind of similar. But yeah, fresh layer of pine shavings, they're kind of tamping it down, and as long as it doesn't smell like ammonia or poop in there when I'm done, I'm happy.
the thing with the ducks is, though, they like to take the water in their mouth and then they shake their heads back and forth. So it goes everywhere. And then there's shitting
Yep.
everywhere. And then there's pine shavings that, because I actually have it so like half the brooder is puppy pads and the water's there and the food's over there. And then the rest is shavings. But somehow they managed to kick all the shavings over into the puppy pad area. And yeah, so luckily we have like two of
Yeah.
those like tote things that we rotate. So it's like, well, so then I can just bring a clean one in and move them over and take the dirty one out.
Oh, that's
But
good.
the call duck house that my husband's building should be done probably today, I think. And it hasn't been too cold out here. And I'll kind of backtrack a little bit to our discussion about heat lamps. I was super nervous about putting a heat lamp in that enclosed little duck house thing that my husband built because it's so beautiful. And like Solo's been in the habit of jumping. So I was like, I don't really want him jumping into this lamp when it's enclosed and it's going to be in our barn. So we have one of those small animal heat pads. I actually got one from a feed store this past winter, and you can put them in nesting boxes, I guess, and it kind of heats the hen up if you have a really, really cold snap or whatever. I mean, they probably don't really even need it, but we had younger chickens brooding within the chicken tractor within the coop, and I didn't want a heat lamp in there either. So I actually, when I cleaned out the duck thing last night, took the heat lamp away and put that heating pad in there,
Yeah.
and the ducklings have just been sitting on that and hanging out, and they seem perfectly happy and fine. And like I pick up the ducklings and their bellies are just toasty warm. I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't want to wake up to a bunch of like, freezing ducklings.
Oh, good.
But I looked on Amazon and there are actually reviews of people saying, yep, I use these instead of heat lamps for my chicks and my ducks. And there are already
Yeah.
like 4 pre-drilled holes in there. So you could even suspend it kind of like the expensive ones that, with the yellow top on them that the chicks crawl under.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
do like the same exact thing with that. And I think I paid like $30 for it. And yeah,
Oh.
it's not bad at all.
If we can figure out what that is, we'll put a link to it in the
I
show
found it
notes so
on
people can go
Amazon, so
check it
I'll
out.
send it over to you.
Yeah, send it over to me because we'll totally put a link to that in the show notes. I bought for when I have to have sick hens in the barn because now that we have the goats in there, I won't put a heat lamp in the barn if I can
Hmm.
avoid it. Our barn is all metal. I know yours is wood, right?
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah, mine's metal, so I think if something actually caught fire in it, it would just like stay within that stall and be okay, but I wasn't gonna risk it. So I bought the same thing that you recommended in one of your videos. I can't remember which
Oh,
video it
yeah,
is. I think
yeah.
it's the one where you're talking about heating the
Yeah.
coop. I forget what it's called. It looks like a flat screen
Yes.
TV. I bought one of
Okay.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are nice too.
Yeah, and that works really well like for a hen, but it doesn't get warm enough for chicks that I'm
Right.
aware of. Yeah.
But I feel like it would work for like even, 8 to 10 week old birds that are starting to get their big kid feathers if it's
Yeah,
still
as long as
chilly
they've got
outside.
some. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good for that.
Because those poor little fluff balls, they lose
Oh,
heat so
yeah.
fast. It's kind of amazing. Although I was shocked at how warm the chicks were when we got back from picking them up. They're so big, they required 3 different boxes to get all 13 of them home.
Oh my goodness.
But they were so toasty in there. And even now, like when I pick them up, like their little bellies are just so hot, even though I don't even have the heat lamp
Aw,
on. It's kind of amazing. They're just like little toast factories.
little guys. This is making me want meat chickens
Yeah.
really bad.
All
I'm
the
gonna have to
babies.
like encourage my husband because our neighbor is so nice, and I think part of it is because we just let him use our barn to store hay in because his barn burned down like 2 years ago, and we don't charge him anything because I didn't have the heart to be able to try to figure out like how much I should charge and then charge him. And I know he's like in a struggling industry.
Yeah.
So, because they actually do kart racing with horses, and in Michigan,
Oh, neat.
it's not a thing anymore. I think there's like one place in Michigan that does it. So he goes to Ohio a lot to do it.
Oh.
And there's actually like you can see from Google Earth if you're like super stalking me, which I'm not going to give out my address on the podcast, but you can see like the
I can go check
racetrack.
it out though, because I have your address.
Yes, I have yours too.
Yeah.
You can see like where the circle is for the oval is for the horse track. So I'm hoping one day in our good fortune, maybe owning that slice of land someday because it's freaking huge. And then I can go on to my dreams of a reindeer farm. That's a whole different
Oh.
story. I have this elaborate plan in my head, and my husband just looks at me and laughs. But you know, when we're like millionaires someday,
Right.
he won't be laughing then. Um, but anyways, he actually has all like this scrap metal kind of stuff like that you can use for a roof, and it came from that barn that burned down actually. So he's been letting us just use whatever we wanted out of that because we let him use our barn for free. So I'm hoping my husband can steal some of that and like make a chicken tractor out of it.
Oh,
And then by the
neat.
time we get them, maybe it'll be warm enough where we can just keep them outside most of the time.
Yeah, that would certainly be helpful. But you know, a lot of the feed stores, they don't sell them all right away when they come in. So if you wait, you know, like a couple weeks after a shipment,
Mm.
they call them senior birds. Although they didn't charge me the senior bird price. They had like a big sign in there that said that they were only going to be $1.50 a piece because of their age. I didn't notice until I looked on the receipt when I got home, but they charged me $1.99 for them, which is like, you know, the fresh chick price. I don't know.
Yeah,
And it was, you know, $6.50, but I didn't want to drive 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back to like get
right.
$6.50 back. That's a lot of
And
time and
gas. I mean,
energy.
when gas is almost like $3 a gallon,
And
like, is it really
gas.
worth it? Probably
Yeah.
not.
Nah, maybe next time I go in there though, I will bring the receipt and see if they'll adjust it, even if it's in a few weeks. But I don't know. I'm not super concerned about it because I've already looked, like even with buying the stock tank, if all 13 survive, I'll be in the black
Mm.
on meat chickens compared to like what it would have been if I would have bought them from the
Oh,
Amish.
dang. There you go.
Because my Amish chickens, they're pastured. I believe they're Cornish crosses also. I'll have to ask them what breed they raise, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they are. Just because like they have the same like body conformation as
Mm.
the grocery store chickens, because that's what the Cornish rock crosses are. They're a classic grocery store broiler chicken, but their meat is a little juicier and tastier when they get to be pastured instead of raised in one
Yeah.
of those big giant closed-in barns, you know, without the sunshine and whatnot. So yeah,
Yeah.
we went back to meat chickens again.
Yes.
But now we've like segued into rotten, so this like worked out kind of well.
So, Bev, I think this is a good time to talk about our sponsor.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I mean, this is our very first sponsor for We Drink and We Farm Things. So, I'm very happy to announce that our sponsor is Henny and Rue. Do you want to tell the listeners what Henny and Rue is if they haven't heard about it before?
Yes, yes, I sure would. So, Honey and Roo is a subscription box for chickens and the people that love them. Every month, you get like this super cool box in the mail, and it's stuffed pack full of things that are both useful and fun for you and your chickens.
Yes. And what I love about it the most, I think, is that it's a very small family run business because obviously we are fans of small business here, since we both are small business owners. And also, I'd like to add that most of my first aid kit has come from Henny and Rue boxes. So I'm a big fan of that because they've definitely bailed me out of some crazy chicken first aid situations over the past couple of months.
Yeah, and in fact, in one of the boxes, they had this super cool bag that was a chicken first aid kit. And so that's what my chicken first aid kit is. It's like stuff full of things that I got in my past boxes because I've actually been a subscriber for about 7 months now. So before they sponsored the podcast, I
Oh,
was a
yeah.
subscriber. So this is something that I've used pretty much ever since I've had my chickens and they were living outside,
Yeah,
which is
we
pretty
are
cool.
definitely big fans. So we are honored to have them be our sponsor. And because they're our sponsor, we're able to offer you guys a fun little discount code for your very first box for the subscription. If you use Drink and Farm when you're in checkout, you're going to get 10% off that first box. And make sure it's drink and spell out the and farm.
And don't forget that when you're a Honey and Roo subscriber, whenever you go to their shop, you automatically get 10% off of the things that are in the shop as well. So not only will you get 10% off of your first box when you use our code, but then when you go back and go shop for some of the other things that might be like from past boxes you've realized you want, or you see something else new that they've got going on in their shop, you get 10% off of that just because you're a subscriber, like no code needed,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is super fun.
Oh yeah. I actually I have this hat. It's technically from a Cheekies boutique, but Honey and Roo carries some of their stuff. It says Mother Clucker on it, and you can see it in a lot of my chicken selfies. I get so many compliments on that. If you're subscribed, you can use that 10% off for that as well. So make sure you get on over to honeyandroo.com, subscribe, use that code, and then just buy all the chicken things.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I wanted to start by saying that I'm really glad that we waited a day to talk about it because I watched it yesterday because I'm really bad at doing my homework. I always was, even when I was in school. Like, as soon as I'm told that I have to do something, like, I'm automatically like, nope, not gonna do it.
Sounds like my husband.
You can't make me. So we were talking yesterday about recording yesterday, and I was like, oh, shoot, I better sit down and watch this because, like, I haven't watched it yet. And even though I was really excited to watch it, I just hadn't made myself do it. I thought I was gonna watch it like while I got a little bit of work done, but no, I was like glued to
Hmm.
it because like in the intro, like they just automatically caught me when that lady was like, "Your milk can kill
What?
kids." I was like, "WTF, lady? Like, you need to calm down, slow your roll." All right, now I gotta watch this. So I like put my pen down. I was like, "All right, now I'm engaged." And I took notes like a big
Ooh,
girl. So
whoa, look out.
I didn't write anybody's name down because I'm terrible with names in real life too. So I was like, nope, not gonna name anybody out. But I totally took some. I totally took some notes. But I thought that the first place to start would really be talking about your family's experience, like in the milk industry, because your grandparents own a dairy farm, right? Or they did?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're like, I want to say, from my grandparents' perspective, second or third generation. And then my aunt and uncle live in the house right next to my grandma and grandpa. And my grandpa obviously is in no shape anymore to do any of that stuff. He obviously would if he
Yeah.
physically could. But my aunt and uncle and my cousin that still lives with them, they run it at this point. And they've gone through very similar to the first family you see on there. I can't recall their names, but they had to sell some other cows at one point, and then they get the cows back, and it's just back and forth because after the whole, and they talk about it in the documentary, stuff was good for a very good amount of time. And then once the government got out of it, which is a whole different thing of if the government should or shouldn't be in that kind of, private sector business, stuff gets rocky and it's up and down and it's unpredictable. And I mean, I don't think they have more than 100 cows now. I don't even think they fill the whole barn when they milk. I'm not entirely sure. But when you aren't organic and when you can't get ahead to get to that point, even, you're getting paid the bottom of the barrel compared to the organic farmers or even the people that turn around and sell the raw stuff. They're the ones that are really making bank, whether they're kind of a smaller operation or if they're huge like that
In
one
California,
at the end
Organic
where
Pastures, was that
yeah,
the name of that farm? Yeah, that's a raw
yes,
milk farm in California. Yeah.
yeah, and they're just very like state of the art. Like I could never see. my grandparents' farm being state of the art.
Turning into
Just
that.
yeah, because they just because based on their income now, they would never get approved for that kind of loan
Well, and
ever.
like when you take out that kind of loan, you have to like have the ability to make the money to like pay the loan back. Otherwise, you're
Exactly.
just like digging yourself into deeper debt. And that's one of the things that they talked about in the documentary was that some people are taking out the loans to like change into organic, but it's so
Yep.
expensive that for most people, it's
Right.
just not
Exactly.
possible. And like, I want to go back to the part about like, like the government
Hmm.
subsidizing food and whatnot. So this is my honest opinion about that. Like, we spend the smallest percentage of our income on food, like compared to other countries. Most countries pay a larger percentage of their income towards food than the United States does. And the reason that we do that is because the government does subsidize like farms. So it's sort of like it's like shooting yourself in the foot to say like, oh, well, the cheese industry or the dairy industry should be able to stand on its own 2 feet like any other capitalistic industry has to.
Hmm.
But we subsidize other food. Dairy just
Yeah.
kind of became like a scapegoat of the food that we subsidize because of that whole cheese thing that they talked about. The
Right.
government was subsidizing milk, and all of this extra milk was being made into cheese, and then a ton of cheese was just like rotting in vaults. So it became a political talking point, and that's what happened
Right.
to milk. Because we still subsidize like soybeans and corn and all sorts of stuff that goes into processed foods. The United States hasn't stopped subsidizing our food. They just stopped subsidizing dairy because it became bad political press. Like, does that sound accurate?
Yeah, and I mean, when you take something that can spoil that easily too, it's probably not best business practice to do that unless you're just gonna
Yeah.
turn it into powder, which I've never had powdered milk before, but it sounds freaking gross to me. Um,
Yeah, I never have
yeah,
either. I would cook with it though. Like, I would totally
yeah.
bake with
Oh
powdered
yeah,
milk.
that's a little different, but I don't know
Yeah.
if I would take like
So
a
it's
powdered milk
useful. Yeah.
packet and add water to it. I mean, it'd probably
And
taste
drink
the
it.
same if you close your eyes, but
And
yeah.
I don't even like milk. I've never liked milk. Like just drinking
Yeah,
it
I'm
out of a
not.
glass ever since I
Yeah,
was
I honestly
little.
haven't done that. Yeah, I haven't done that in a long time, and I mean, unless there's Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal in there.
See, mine is Captain Crunch with berries.
Oh, see, but I just try to stay away from cereal in general because it's so sugary. But I mean, sometimes I do enjoy a nice small glass of milk with some Oreos. So there's a time and
Oh, yeah, I do
place.
that too every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, I try to stay away from processed food because that's like, that's what I do and what I preach. But some Captain Crunch with berries and Oreos every now and
Hmm.
then are quite the
Yes.
treat.
Yes. When I was doing keto diet, I did keto for like a year, or not for like a year, for like 3 months last year. And it's literally been the only way I've been able to lose any weight. And I'm considering going through another round of it again because this Mediterranean diet, like I just can't control myself with any kind of carb. So if I do mostly like vegetables and meat, like I'm good. And if I do that for like 3 months, I'll probably drop another 20 pounds. And then if I do it another 3 months next year, I'll be in a happy land of weight space for myself again. But that was a tangent. But when I do keto, I tend to lean towards heavy cream to put into coffee and things like that. But I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not drinking heavy cream straight up because that would be really
Well,
gross.
and anytime you're doing anything to like alter your food intake, like you have to still make it enjoyable to yourself. Like
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
never done I've done that, that beach body thing like a bunch of times. I
Oh
never
yeah.
follow their food advice. I mean, I do some of the meals and I have like the Fixate cookbook and whatnot, but I don't stick to it like religiously because I like a little bit of cream and sugar in my coffee. I don't go super crazy. It's just like a tiny scoop of sugar and like a little splash of milk. And my cream is too thick. I'll get into my milk like as we get further into this, but I can't actually put cream in my coffee because you can like scoop it out with a spoon and it's like the consistency of mousse. I don't know how else to describe it. Or like pudding. I don't know. So I just use a splash of milk. I'm like, that's something that I really enjoy. That's like a part of like what I
Right,
do during
right.
the day. And when I take that away, it automatically puts me in like a shitty mood. And it just like
Oh
I can't
yeah.
mentally get over that. So when you're trying to make yourself healthier with food, it's really important not to like shame yourself for doing the things that you
Right.
really enjoy. And milk in your coffee is one of them. Like, have all the
Exactly.
milk in your coffee you want. You can't have so much milk that it's going to make a
Right.
real difference in your weight gain. Like,
Right. No, and with the whole keto thing too, the reason I could stick with it for so long was because I could still have cheese, because I am in love with
yeah.
cheese. I would rather give up bread than not have cheese. So that's why I can do it in small increments. I've heard if you do it long term, it's not super great for your
I could see
kidneys.
that.
And like I did it for 3 months and I've kept off 20 pounds for almost a year now. So
And that's amazing.
yeah, because usually, people lose that kind of weight and then they just gain it right back. So yay, keto. But yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yay.
I'm a big fan of find what works for you and do that.
I've been pronouncing keto wrong this whole time. I've been saying it keto.
Oh, that's
I don't know
okay.
why.
I'm sure we get what you mean. It's like ketogenic, ketosis. Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
like
Yeah,
I'm not
see.
yeah, I'm not like super strict with it either. So I'm not, it's mostly just like super low carb for me when I do it because because I am a person that really likes control. Sometimes I get a little too carried away if I'm tracking super closely. So in order to keep myself in balance, I don't track super closely, but I just stay away from certain things. Otherwise, I get obsessive about it and then I get tired of it and I get frustrated and then I just eat like all the freaking carbs. So
Yeah.
you got to find what works for you. But anyways, that was a rabbit hole. Back to milk money. I want to know what you thought about the whole raw milk thing because they went over that quite I want to say like half the documentary was about that.
Yes, half of the documentary was about the raw milk thing. And so, like, my first thought when I was watching this and seeing the story unfold about like the kid that got E. coli and spent so many days in the hospital,
Mhm.
like I feel really terrible for that family. And that poor kid needs some counseling.
Uh-huh.
And his mom needs some counseling too. That was super obvious when you watch the
Oh yeah.
documentary. She's so worked up about the idea that this one food got her son sick. She's like basically made him terrified of like an entire food, and he has PTSD from
Oh
being in the
yeah.
hospital. And I totally don't blame him for that. I'm sure that that was a horrifying experience for all of them. But I also sort of wanted to put that experience into perspective. Like right now, we're in the middle of a romaine lettuce
Yes.
like recall
Thank you.
because of E. coli, which is the exact same thing that this poor kid got from
Mhm.
drinking raw milk. And like to put like the scale of like how many people got sick in perspective, like this E. coli outbreak that we have, this is a
Uh-huh.
multi-state thing that we have going on right now. I don't even know how many states are involved right now. I want to say it's over
It's
20 at
crazy
this point. I
regardless.
probably should have researched this before we talked, but this is a huge, yeah, this is a huge recall. And one of the things,
Yep. And it's not the first time
no, and
either that lettuce or spinach or something like that. It feels like every single year
well,
this
and you can
happens.
get E. coli. So E. coli is a bacteria that naturally exists in the guts of human beings and cows and basically like all carnivorous animals, I want to say. If the animal eats meat, it has the chance of having E. coli in it. So like when you use manure or compost, like on your, no, it can't just be meat animals. I'll have to do a little research on that. See, sometimes I just don't have all the facts. But it does live in guts. But you can get E. coli from your own vegetable garden if you use compost that has manure in it on it and you don't rinse
Mm.
the vegetables off good enough. Like the reason why people get so sick on large scales like this is when like all of our food production is contained within like, these large units that like take care of food for so many people. I don't know how else to say that. I don't feel like I'm
No.
expressing
I
myself
think
right.
I think you are and
Do you get
I,
it?
I
Like,
totally I'm picking up what you're putting down there. I actually saw something on Facebook this
yeah.
morning that said that there's a salmonella outbreak for eggs at the store.
200 million eggs.
Yep. So it just,
That was the number I
if
saw.
anything, this documentation, geez, Sam, cut down on the vodka. This documentary has made me just realize that I am like to the point in my life where I would just like to be able to self-sustain to a large degree with my beef, with my chickens, with eggs, with everything, just to the point where if I can feed me and my family based on the stuff that grows in my backyard, that would be fantastic. Because at least if I get sick from the stuff that I do, it's my own damn fault. it's it's
Right?
something that, I and if you're doing it right in your backyard and you're controlling how you do it, you're less likely to get sick or get those things. I mean, it could still very well happen, but,
One of the problems with milk and why milk is so obvious, like obviously an easy like black
mhm.
sheep, is you can't rinse milk
Right.
off.
Right.
Like this whole romaine lettuce thing is, I mean, a little bit of produce wash and, drop it in the strainer and vigorously, spray off with water, you should
Right.
get like most of it off and shouldn't end up with
Exactly.
it.
Yep.
But you can't do that to milk. So that's why we pasteurize. And I also wanted to point out something a little interesting that I don't think the documentary said. Sometimes I got like when I start getting hardcore into information, I sort of mix it all up where it came from. So if this was mentioned in the documentary, I'm sorry, I just totally forgot. But pasteurization was not created specifically for milk. It was created as a way to stop the fermentation of
Oh,
alcohol so that it
see,
stayed at a safe level.
but in Ireland, they don't pasteurize their Guinness. But in America, the stuff that's sent over, that stuff is pasteurized. Huge difference in taste profile. It's crazy. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, fun fact, Sam's been to Ireland. The Guinness factory
Huh.
there is shaped like an upside down pint glass, and you go all the way up,
Ooh.
and then you get a very, very nice Guinness at the top, and then you take the stairs all the way down, and then it lands you right into a shop, so you have a nice little buzz, and you're gonna,
Buy some things. Yeah.
chop. But anyways, but yeah, they don't pasteurize. And I also found it interesting that somebody, like, I didn't know the process of pasteurization was named after
Oh
somebody.
yeah, Louis Pasteur, if I'm remembering
Yeah,
correctly. Yeah.
yeah, I found that interesting. And I don't think the alcohol thing was in there because I feel like that's a new thing that I just learned.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and I might have like some of the information about that like mixed up a little bit. I didn't take like, super crazy notes because this isn't like a documentary podcast. We're mostly funny about things.
right.
So I wasn't trying to be too serious with my research. But yeah, it had something to do with alcohol was why they started pasteurizing. And you know how they talked about how Chicago was the first city to require pasteurization
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
milk? The federal government was working on something, and they were just taking so long that Chicago just like
Well,
jumped the
because it's the
gun,
government.
apparently. Yeah, I looked into
Aren't.
like yeah, right. I mean, everything freaking takes
Oh
like for
yeah.
forever. Yeah, I'm a government contractor. Like everything we do is like lots of paperwork and lots of red tape, and
Yep,
everything
yep,
is
yep.
just time, 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 time. But enough about me bitching about work. The the reason why they had to pasteurize milk then was, I mean, they laid it out in the documentary. People were bringing their cows into the city. Like there wasn't running water in the late 1800s. So like imagine
Ugh.
cleaning everything and making everything like sanitary. Like I can't imagine right now cleaning
Ugh.
my meat chick brooder without a
Oop.
hose. Like that just like it's everything was so much more work. And
Right.
they didn't have an understanding of disease and sickness that we do now. So
Mhm.
I mean, quite honestly, I think that raw milk would be safer
Right.
if it was legalized and then regulated. And then I think more people would have access to it. And we don't drink raw
Mhm.
milk because of all of the health benefits that they talked about. Like the asthma and the eczema. I think that some of those claims, I totally believe that it's true that people have experienced like a reduction in symptoms to some illnesses by consuming a whole food that has all of the enzymes and vitamins and everything that nature intended in it.
Mhm.
Just like I fully believe that there are people who have had great success using essential oils, like for healing. Part of
Right.
healing and like the holistic nature of things is like your
Yeah.
viewpoint and your perspective on it. Like they have done studies on it. What you think something is going to do for you, like truly can manifest like that experience. So,
I actually wrote my whole master's thesis around that
did
idea
you?
of like how spirituality and religion can affect your outcome clinically if you're sick or
Yeah.
in the surgical, situation or cancer or whatever. Time and time again, it doesn't say exactly which religion, is is the cure all. There isn't necessarily one, but if you have belief in something higher than you or that, somebody's watching over you, you're more likely to come out of something with a positive outcome. Whereas if you're doom and gloom and you don't believe in anything, tend to have lower outcomes. Yeah, if you just think you're
To
here,
be like a rotting pile of bones. Like
right,
you're here
you're
to feed the
here and then
earth and
you're
that's
not.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. But across from Buddhist, Christianity, I can't think of more because I've had some vodka and it's only noon. But you get what I'm saying with any religion or any religion with a higher power that is seen as like a friendly higher power, you tend to have a better outcome across the board. So obviously we're not a religious podcast here, so I'm not knocking on anybody in general. That's just what I observed based on my research. But it kind of goes with if you believe it's going to work for you, your mind will make it work.
Yeah, just like if you go to Thanksgiving dinner and think that your family is going to fight and be like a bunch of like crappy people during
Right.
it, they're totally going to be because you're going to walk in there like, with this scowl on your
Yeah.
face and your arms crossed
You're just
and
attracting
like I hate
shit
being
storm
here.
right to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very careful even with I don't have great experiences all the time with my stepchildren, especially when we haven't seen them for like a month, just because you have to get back in that groove. So if you go into it with a negative mindset, of course it's going to be a horrible shitstorm. But if you go into it with a positive mindset and even kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing, it just goes better for everybody involved. So it's kind of like a mind trick almost
A
on
mind trick. Yeah.
yourself. So yeah, if you're drinking raw milk and you think it's going to work for you, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I think the mind does have, it's very powerful. So yeah, that's very true. And I love essential oils too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I use them to sleep every night. My favorite is Roman chamomile. I'll like sleep for 10
Ooh.
hours straight using that one. There's my essential oil tip for you right there.
Yeah, we like to stay at the Weston Book Cadillac whenever we go to downtown Detroit, and they give you like a complimentary like roller that has lavender and some other stuff in it, and that stuff is
Oh, how
it's
nice.
magical. So like I like to make sure I take that home with me
Yeah,
because it lasts a long time.
it
I mean,
does.
and they're just gonna throw it out because you like rolled it on your forehead.
Yeah, so you
So
might as well keep that. Yeah, that's totally worth
exactly,
something.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, raw milk is illegal in Ohio, and I think that I knew that
Really?
already. Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, that's why I own like a share of the herd that I get milk from. That's like sort of how they get around that.
Oh,
I'm like a technical owner, like part owner of their herd. Yeah,
that's
I don't know like
interesting.
what percentage of a cow I own. Probably not a lot because I don't get
Like,
that much
is
milk.
it like one teat? You own like one teat of a
Yeah, I
cow?
own one teat of the udder of one cow. That's totally possibly what it is. And something else I wanted to point out, like the way that the organic pastures does their raw milk, that's probably like the safest option for raw milk that you can possibly have. Like I would argue that that's probably even safer than milking your cow at home and drinking the milk. Because of the
Oh yeah.
protocols that they go through for
It's
cleanliness
insane.
and safety.
Like
Like
it's so fascinating.
I think the way that I drink raw milk might actually be like one of the more dangerous. I don't know if they actually milk it by hand now, though, that I think about it. I guess I just always imagined that that's what it was because they're Amish. But like I've seen them pour the milk out, and that tank that they have that keeps
Hmm.
it cold, and even conventional farmers use one of those. They have one of those
Okay.
in the creamery that I go into to go pick up milk. The cows don't actually like live in the actual building that I go in, like to walk in to get milk. It's a very small building. It's not a very big one. They're Amish, so I don't want to be disrespectful, and I don't take any pictures of anything
Right.
while I'm there. But they have like a neat tank just like that. It's not super big. Like if I had to guess, I'd say it's about like half the size of, like the bright tank that they use like for beer brewing. So it's not a very big tank. I forget how big those are. 55 drums?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just making shit up. I don't know the number. But yeah, and they pour it out like nice and cold, like into these like either like clean sanitized glass bottles or plastic. I get mine in plastic because sometimes I hold on to my milk so long that it turns into clabber, and clabber is really hard to clean out of containers. And so I
Okay.
didn't want to mess with that. So I do mine in plastic. I clean them out, and I save them to store our apple cider in the wintertime.
Ooh.
As long as they don't smell all stinky. Like I wash them, I keep the cap separately. I'll dip them in like some bleach water and clean them out. I'll smell the insides though, and if they smell funky, they end up going in the recycling. So I try to reuse them even though they're plastic, because I hate wasting plastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't like spending time cleaning glass, and I'm worried about getting sick if I don't clean my glass bottles properly. There's potential for my family to
Right.
get ill from that, and I don't want to be the reason for that. But I do have some tips like for raw milk in general if somebody's interested and wants to go out and do it. Like they let me take a tour of their farm before I signed up and became a member. Anybody that won't let you in
Yep.
probably has something to hide. Or they might be scared that you're, like a federal agent going to shut them down. Which one of the things I talked about in the documentary was how nuts it was that like federal agents are actually like wasting their time going around
Mm-hmm.
shutting down like these small farms because like they're small potatoes. Like as far as illegal farming practices go, like they're nothing. But there's also the other side of it where there's dairy farmers,
Right.
like conventional dairy farmers that just can't make ends meet. So there's like big competition within the same industry based on the type of dairy farming that you do. So they're probably getting a lot of pressure from, like dairy lobby and whatnot to try to do something
Oh
about that
yeah.
because consumers will spend a lot of money on it. When I buy the half gallons of milk, one container at a time, it's $5.53 for a
Yeah.
half gallon. So a gallon of milk is about $11. I tend to buy them in bulk, so I buy them in 10 packs, especially now that I'm feeding the goats. That makes it easier to go through. But they cost less money when I buy them in bulk. I can't remember what it is per thing, but I think it saves me
Right.
like $1.50 a gallon or something like that. Whatever it is pretty significant. So I usually do that if I can. But raw milk, if you want to like check it out, I always check the bottles too before I open them and we use them. Like I kind of roll them around and look around. Like if I ever saw anything floating in it, like
Mm-hmm.
straw or hay or dirt or anything that doesn't look like it belonged, I would check it. I would never drink it.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
because if
See,
anything with any type of like fecal matter on it gets in there, that's how you get E. coli. You get E. coli from poop, basically.
exactly.
Wash the poop off your hands. Wash the poop off your vegetables. Don't put poop in your milk. You won't get E. coli.
And this is what gets me about like I have sympathy for that lady and her child, and I agree. They probably need some degree of counseling because what they went through was very traumatic. But what got me was okay, so we have the FDA. This stuff isn't necessarily regulated because it's not necessarily legal everywhere. Why? Why? Okay, as a human being, this is where you need to take responsibility for your actions. You chose to go into that store and try this raw milk. You chose not to do your research. You put
Yeah.
yourself and your child in that situation. It is nobody else's fault. I'm sorry. Like, it is really not anybody else's fault. When you do something like that, you have to make sure you know what you're doing and you know what you're getting into. And that can be a risk if you're not fully aware of what you're putting into your body. Now with you, it seems like you're doing it the right way because you've done your homework. You know where it's coming from, they let you come in and look around. So some of it's just common sense, and you can't expect the government to protect you from everything because at the end of the day, a lot of those politicians are just out for themselves and what they want, and they like their cushy paycheck and all of
Well,
that.
and they're protecting the industries that are going to pay
It,
them. That's sort of
exactly.
the takeaway that I've sort of
Exactly.
gotten from this whole food thing. I think I already knew
Yes.
some of that. Oh, and I wanted to share a fun fact about the
Yeah.
FDA. So the FDA wasn't a thing until when Roosevelt was president. What was his name? I think I wrote his name down. I watched it on Adam Ruins Everything. He does like an reanimated history. And I had
Ooh.
actually seen this one weeks before we watched this documentary, so I had to go back through and watch it. I didn't write down the dude's name. Did I put it in my show notes? Sometimes I type up some show notes on Word, and I get it out. I want to say it was like something Wiley. His last name was Wiley. And he started the FDA because companies were canning
Mhm.
rotten food. Harvey
Oh.
Washington Wiley was his name. Companies were canning rotten food. So, like during World War One, they didn't talk about how a lot of the deaths that happened during World War One were actually due to the canned food that we were like shipping
Ugh.
overseas to soldiers because they were literally rotten. And they were using poisonous ingredients to like color food and like to keep it looking and smelling fresher than it really was. So this Harvey Washington Wiley guy started this thing called what was it? It was like this squad that was a bunch of like young, semi-wealthy, healthy like white dudes, and he fed them food like that had been messed with by all of these companies
Hmm.
to keep it fresh, and they all
Ugh.
got really ill from it. And it became like national news. So they started the FDA to stop companies from canning like disgusting rotting food and giving it to people, or like they were like dipping eggs in things to like make them
Oh
still
my
smell fresh
God.
even though they had like gone rancid on the inside.
Knowledge bombs from Bev and
So
Sam. Well,
interesting
you
fact.
had more knowledge bombs. Me was just ranting about big government and my libertarian leanings of in the middle. I like to be in the middle.
Well, I mean, it's just
It's complicated.
so
It's not
here's
simple, you know.
everything is always more complicated than you think it is. Like, and it's not like it's just like this whole dairy thing. Like, the reason dairy farms aren't profitable isn't because farmers are mismanaging their money or mismanaging their herd, or it's not even necessarily that there's not enough demand for the product, or it's not even totally because government like cut off subsidies to them. It's like
Hmm.
this like whole rolling shitstorm of tons of like complicated things
Oh
that like
yeah.
cause this to happen. And that's what it is with everything. Like I think that's why I don't like get too passionate or worked up about certain things anymore, because as soon as a problem like presents itself to me, I automatically assume that whatever caused it is much more complicated than just A created B.
Right. Exactly.
Like the entire alphabet soup is like thrown into why this is a thing. So that's why you'll never see me like ranting and raving like a whole ton. Yeah.
It's like sometimes I feel like because of extremes of one or the other, you can't make everybody happy. And then nobody knows how to fix the problems. And it's so complicated that it just keeps festering and it keeps getting worse or it keeps, being stagnant and the same. So, and because everybody thinks they're right, well, I shouldn't say everybody, because I feel like you and me, we're pretty like, we can see both sides of the spectrum and we you know, can see that it's more complicated and it's not black and white. But because so many other people think it is just black and white, like nothing's ever going to change until you can see that there is
Yeah.
gray. And, you have to work towards a compromise and have like steps drawn out over time to try to fix something. Like, God forbid that that happen.
Well, and people just don't like change in general either. Like anytime
Hmm.
change is
Hmm.
introduced on any side of anything, like it's automatically fought against because that's just like
Right.
sort of in human beings' nature, I guess.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
yeah, like the farm that I'm a part of for the raw milk thing, like they're super active and like really pushing for like everybody should be drinking raw milk. And I want to make it super clear that I don't think everybody should drink raw milk. Like it definitely does come with risk factors. Like they talk about how, kids with like compromised immunity or, like the elderly, anybody who doesn't have the ability to like fight off any sickness that they ended up having, like, yeah, definitely not.
Hmm.
It's not
Yeah.
for them. In my very real opinion. I don't give my very real opinion about things very often because sometimes I'm really undecided on things. But like that's to like, when they talked about that in the documentary, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's totally true. I don't
Yeah.
think everybody should drink raw milk.
No.
I think that that's a choice that you should get to make though, if
Exactly.
you want to drink it. And like I make a lot of cheese with our raw milk, which is one of the
Mm.
reasons why I end up with it. And I'm gonna be 100% honest so that like everybody doesn't like think that I'm like this great like raw milk activist. One of the reasons we drink raw milk is because our closest grocery store is 30 minutes away. And getting milk from the grocery store is a lot more difficult for me than it is for some people. We have a dollar store here that I was picking up milk from, but an organic half gallon of milk costs the exact same as my raw milk.
Oh, wow.
And I was buying that, but it's not in stock all the time because they don't keep a lot of it because, milk goes
Right.
bad. And that's another reason why they pasteurize it. Like, don't get too caught up in the whole food safety thing. It's also because when they have to throw milk away, they lose money. So pasteurizing milk makes it last longer, which helps companies
Hmm.
make more money. Like, I totally forgot to mention that earlier. So yeah, I was looking for a place that I could get vegetables and milk from because I wanted to make some cheese, and I wasn't happy with the quality of the vegetables I was getting from the grocery store, and I realized there were so many farms around us, like somebody must be doing something, and I found it. And I was gonna share where I get my raw milk from, but so now that I know that it's illegal in Ohio, I'm not going to because I don't want to get them in any trouble. Not that millions of people listen to this or anything and are gonna go hunt them down, but I just
Yeah, not yet
I don't want to
anyways.
cause them any trouble. That's not, yeah.
No, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know that we'll always drink raw milk either. I mean, we got our goats, so I'm hoping that we'll be milking our goats eventually, and that's what we're
Ooh,
gonna,
yeah.
that'll be like our primary like milk. We eat cereal around here. Sometimes I make like the healthy granola cereal. Sometimes I buy Captain Crunch with berries. Just depends on how the week has gone.
Yeah, of course. It's all about balance.
Balance, yeah. That's my life is like one big like picture of me like standing on one foot like on a wire trying not to break all the dishes. That's like the perfect metaphor for my entire life.
Oh boy. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like I know that any decision I make is not the perfect decision. I try to make the best one.
Yes, exactly.
And that's
And
the
I think
best for us
that
right
that
now.
kind of rings true to the whole
Um,
farming thing and raw milk and anything else you do. You have to find what works for you, even if it's just in that moment. It shouldn't be a harsh judgment either way. Like, yes, raw milk, or no raw milk, or yes, I'm going to raise my own chickens, or no, I'm going to buy it from the store. Like,
yeah.
everybody's different in their journey with the farming thing and just in life in general. Like,
We
there's
say
there's
that a
not
lot.
necessarily a wrong
Basically, you
answer.
can do whatever the hell you want to. Do what you want.
Yes, because it's true. Yeah, as long as it's not illegal and you're not pissing anybody off intentionally, like you're probably fine.
There we go. So, did we got any cool listener farm stories
Oh,
this week?
we didn't, but we did get a
Oh,
question, and I know this has been a long one, but we did have somebody ask.
okay. And it's been a few weeks, so probably should answer
Yes,
this now.
as a new alcohol drinker, what are the best beers and wine to start out with if you're not super experienced or don't have a palate for beer and wine? What are the best things to start off with?
Ooh, that's a complicated question.
I know.
So, I mean, I feel like I have a good answer for wine, oddly enough, which I know
Oh,
wine isn't normally my specialty. So, I, I mean, I'll give my opinion on that really quick, and then you can give your wine opinion and see
sure.
if you agree with me. But from what I've heard and how I started in wine, is a Pinot Noir is
Oh.
like one of the more popular and common ways to sort of squeeze yourself into wine if you're not necessarily used to it. Because some of the heavier, like
Mm-hmm.
full-bodied wines, like the tannins, can kind of knock you in the face if you're not used to them. Whereas like the Pinot Noir is a little sweeter, it's a little lighter, but it still has that nice like dark red color and enough body
Mm-hmm.
to, like drink with a steak. So yeah, that's what I think as far as wine goes. What do you think?
Back in the day, when I turned 21 and could purchase alcohol, I thought it would be a really good idea to start off with a yellowtail Merlot. And it was an awful idea because it was like licking an ashtray that was still warm.
Yeah.
But now I love Merlot. So with wine, I definitely think you need to keep an open mind. If you're not sure about what you're going to like, you're closer to a winery, or there are certain online wine clubs where they'll send you like a starter kit that has a bunch of different smaller bottles of wine so you can try them all and see what you like. And then based on that, they can send you other things. I just am a big fan of try everything. You
Yeah.
can like Google like a spectrum of wine from sweetest white to driest red. And I would start somewhere in the middle like a Gamay is a good red wine to start off with because it's not super harsh. Definitely you could try the Pinot Noir, also not super harsh. You can do a sweeter red. If you have kind of a sweet tooth, you might want to lean towards some of those sweeter whites or even a sweeter red, like Barefoot Sweet
I
Red.
love a good Riesling.
Yes, Riesling, one of my jams.
Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of Pinot Grigio. That's a good white one. You could also try like a sangria or something if you just want to like dip your toe in to the wine world, because that tends to be like a red or white wine mixed with fruit and a little bit of vodka sometimes. So be careful with that because it will knock you on your butt.
It'll
But
get
it's
you drunk.
delicious. Yeah, but I highly recommend going to a wine tasting and just trying anything, or just going into your local shop that has like liquor, wine, and beer and just saying what's new, what's weird, what's sweet. Those people that tend to work in those places love alcohol and know a lot about it. So don't be shy and definitely pick their brain about it. So that's kind of where I am. Just
Oh, I
kind of be
like that. See, I just like named
open-minded.
something.
I mean, for the ones out there that feel like they need a name to go to, that's perfect. For me, I'm just like, yeah, try it all.
Like,
But
try it all.
it can be very intimidating to be staring at the wine aisle and be like, I don't know where to start. Because with each brand, like a Pinot Noir can taste completely different based on, the region of the world it came from or the
Oh, yeah.
manufacturer.
Yeah, that's totally true.
So
Yeah.
it just it really depends. But definitely you can check Riesling if you got a sweet tooth, Pinot Noir for kind of a more middle, or a Gamay. You probably need to go to like a wine store to find a Gamay. I can't really find one of those at like Walmart.
Yeah, I don't think they usually have those in the grocery store. I also am a big fan of
Oh,
Grenaches.
yes.
Wait, is that a
Yeah.
wine? Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
I was like, wait, is that a
Yeah.
dessert or is that a wine?
Well, dessert wine, kind of same thing. Dessert wines are also
Yeah.
great for a newbie that has kind of a sweeter tooth too, like a cherry wine.
Can you tell
Um,
I have a sweet tooth?
yeah.
I'm not a dry wine type of person.
It took me about 6 months of consistently tasting wine to get to the point of enjoying a dry wine, but I still can't.
Isn't that how people start smoking cigarettes?
I mean, back in the day, I was never like a true cigarette smoker, but I did enjoy like the Dijarum cloves. And when you could still smoke in
Yeah.
bars, I was like chain smoking those, which is actually like really gross, like in hindsight, looking back.
Oh, so it's terrible for your
Oh, yeah.
for your lungs.
But I don't have an addictive personality,
So
so
you're
I
like able to
never
kick it, no
really.
problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I was a smoker a long time ago. It's been like easily a decade since I was a smoker.
Oh, wow. Good
Uh,
job.
yeah.
That's a
Although
big deal.
when I do get super drunky pants, I will have one every now and then.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
gonna say
Me
it's been a
too.
long time since I've done that, but it's been a while. It's been a while since I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and to me, it makes the hangover way worse too.
It does. Yeah, I agree with that.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Because your body's
So,
just like, whoa, you just
oh
like
yeah. It's like, what are
totally
you
tried to kill me
doing?
yesterday.
Yeah, it's like you haven't done this in so long. What are you doing? And like your body shames you for what you just did. So, what do you recommend to the beginning beer drinker, Bev?
Oh, well, now you made me feel like I need to tell them to go to a brewery and taste everything.
But I realize like brewery and winery visits aren't a reality for everybody, especially if they're 21 and just starting out, they're probably going to go drink Natty Light and it'll be disgusting. But if they're feeling
Yeah, and
more
they're not going to care for that.
sophisticated, ooh,
If they're feeling more sophisticated than that, see, I hesitate to name an exact like beer that I would recommend to start with, just because like what you can find regionally like just
right.
varies so greatly because of like distribution requirements and
Hmm.
whatnot. But the first type of beer that I ever had and liked was a Hefeweizen. And part of that was because it has sort of a mild flavor. It's brewed with wheat, so it has like a familiar flavor profile. And a lot of them use like cloves,
Mm,
coriander, bananas in the brewing process. So it has like just like if you like those things, it has like a
okay.
pleasant flavor. So, like a wheat beer or a Hefeweizen, it was what I started with and what I would normally recommend to somebody. Like, unless they say that they have celiac and,
Right.
they can't have wheat. And, like, if that's the case, like, there are a ton of, like, wheat-free beers, and they do totally taste like beer, so you can try to find one of those. Some people really hate wheat beers because they don't like the unfiltered,
Mm-hmm.
like grittiness that they can sometimes have. But they have filtered wheat beers and filtered Hefeweizens as well. So you can try one of those. But a good light, refreshing, like lemon
Oh yeah.
ale is also a great place to start. Anything that's got a tiny bit of fruit in it. And I'm not just saying this to girls because I don't think ladies are the only people that enjoy fruit beer. We have tons of fruit beer in our fridge, and my husband will have them every now and then. I tend to gravitate towards them because it's hot right now, and I just love the refreshingness of
Right.
them. I drink tons of beer that doesn't have fruit in it, though, like tons. But if beer flavor profiles aren't something that you're super into yet, that's a nice way to sort of like
Mm-hmm.
segue into it and get a taste for it because it's got a flavor in it that you know you like and that you enjoy. But yeah,
All right.
that's what I would say.
So I
What do you
am
think?
more of a steer clear for beer. So you want to steer clear from anything like mass produced if you're not a fan. I mean, by all means, if you are 21 and you're in college, you're going to be drinking Bud Light, Coors Light, all that fun stuff. But I would personally, if you get into the fancier beers that cost a little more, stay away from IPAs and stouts if you're trying to ease your way in. Because to me, IPAs feel like I'm shoving a what do you call it in its raw form when you're growing beer, the buds. What do you call
Oh, the
that?
hops?
The hops. Yeah. So yeah. Uh, when I'm drinking an IPA, I feel like I'm just shoving my mouth roll with a bunch of hops that I just picked freshly. So I'm not a fan. And then with stouts, they're like drinking a whole like meal. So I wouldn't start in those places because in my mind, that's where like both ends of the spectrum are. When you're in the kind of nicer beer world, micro brew world. But I'm a huge fan of stouts, actually. I love a good coffee stout. I've tried a French toast one that was like mind-blowingly good. So I'm actually a fan of stouts, but if, I kind of defer to Bev on this one with her advice. I would just stay away from anything too super duper hoppy because it might just turn you off completely.
And like as far as the darker beers go,
Hmm.
usually when you segue into those, you would start with a
Yes.
porter because it's a little less bitter than a stout is. But I like both stouts and porters. I've been drinking so much beer isn't the right word because I really don't drink that much beer. But I've tried so
Oh,
many different kinds that I actually like something about just about all of them. There's none
right.
that I like truly hate and like wouldn't drink.
Yeah, I'm actually like I just Googled it. There's a brewery in Wakanda, Illinois. It's called Small Town Brewery. They're the ones that brought you like Not Your Father's root
Oh
beer,
yeah.
Not Your Father's ginger ale. They also have that French toast one. It's like eating breakfast.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, and they actually have been at the Naperville Ale Fest, the past couple ones that I've gone to. They're very good. So I feel comfortable saying their
Oh,
name here because they'll be at that fest if you guys want to join us. More details to come. Um,
yes.
but
Yeah, because we
yes.
bought our meat birds like now specifically so we could have them done in time. So
Yes.
we're gonna be there.
All right.
Well, thanks for listening to our lucky number 13 episode of We Drink and We Farm Things. I'm Bev.
And I'm Sam. And you can find us over at Drink and Farm on Instagram. And also, we just started a brand spanking new Facebook group where we have different discussion threads going on for the Rotten documentary. So you can go in there and give us your opinions and think. You can let us know if you think we're full of poo poo or if you agree with us. Either way, we love you. But you will have to ask to join that. Bev and I will approve it, and you can go on there and see what fun things we have going on in there. We do have some cool things that we're planning that'll go on in there. Be patient with us as we work through those. But we're excited. So find us on Facebook and on Instagram if you want to get a hold of us.
Yes, we are super excited about that. And while we sign off, we also have to thank this episode's sponsor, which is Honey and Rue, the subscription box for
Woohoo!
chickens and the people that love them. So you probably noticed, like somewhere in the middle of this episode, we did like a great, fun commercial for them. And just know that supporting our sponsors helps support our podcast. And anything that we advertise for the time being at least, is something that we use
Mm-hmm.
and we believe in. Actually, why did I say for the time being? I don't know why I said that. I can't imagine that we would ever take sponsorship from something that
Yeah.
like we hated, because we do all of this ourselves. Like we're not
No,
beholden to anyone,
not yet.
just so you know. So like everything that we do here, like we do it all like using our hands and our feet sometimes
And our
and, and
brains.
our brains. And what other body parts do we use for this? I don't know.
Maybe an elbow once in a while.
Yeah, yeah. Put in some elbow grease.
Yeah.
So yeah, so supporting our sponsors supports our podcast. So yeah, huge thank you to Henny and Rue for supporting this episode.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate hanging out with you and getting to talk about us drinking and farming
Yeah.
things.
Talk to you guys later. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Hey, Future Bev here. I was editing this episode and we got all done and got to the end, and I realized that Sam and I totally forgot to tell you about two very important things. One of them is we have some Drink and Farm stickers over in our store. So there will be a link in the show notes to snag one of those if you'd like. We only have a finite number of them, so if you want a Drink and Farm sticker, be sure and grab one. And also, we forgot to assign the homework for next week. So, we've been watching the Rotten series. Sam recently just watched the Peanut one. So, I'm going to put a link in the show notes to the Rotten series to remind you to watch the Peanut episode before our next episode, because we will be talking about that next week. But, I mean, as you know, this isn't a super serious thing. So, if you don't want to watch the episode and still listen in and chime in on the discussion, you can totally do that. So, yeah, that's it. Bye.